So a couple of quick items of business. First one is, if you didn't already pick up a shirt outside on the tables, please pick one up after this session. Second is, we'll be in this general area today. So all day today is just right up here in these 4 rooms, I believe. Ike, we good? Yeah. All right. Well, like Ike said, thank you for joining us in beautiful Keystone, Colorado. Very exciting to be here. This is, as Ike mentioned, our inaugural bridge session within InstructureCon. And so we honestly didn't know what the response was going to be, and I'm overwhelmed with the number of people that are here and excited to have you all. Really quick, let's have Instructure employees stand up. So we got a handful. If you have any questions, not everybody's in uniform, but maybe you can remember a face or two, and if you have any questions, you can ask these folks. Thank you. In terms of distance, where are people from? So how many from any from Colorado? Had a nice, great. Utah, I would imagine we've got a lot of representation. Way to go, Chris Harmon. Some of you may know him. Yeah, Chris is great. Who's from far away? Anybody from out of country? Where are you from? Canada. Canada, okay. That's out of the country. That counts. All right. Well, as COO, part of my job responsibilities include making sure that we are constantly innovating. So we have the stated purpose to help maximize human potential through the use of software. That's what we want to do as a company. There's lots of software that we could write, and most of it is really not that interesting to us. Instead, what we're interested in is helping you maximize your investment in your employees and helping develop people. We started on the education side of the world and built an LMS called Canvas, and it was very successful. And we said, you know what? This is satisfying. We enjoy improving teaching and learning and ultimately having an impact on people's lives. How can we do more of that? And so we branched out onto the corporate side, and it's all about helping your employees be successful. Right? We want to help develop them, and whether that's through learning or, as you'll hear in some other announcements later today, further expansion into the human capital management suite, that's what we want to help you do. So we want to help you maximize your employee potential. But that requires that we innovate constantly. And I think we're pretty good at building beautiful, engaging, intuitive software, but always trying to push the limits of the features and functionalities that we offer. And while researching innovation, I found something really interesting. It was an article in the Atlantic, November 2013, talks about humans, the greatest breakthroughs in modern history, so since the wheel, that have impacted our modern life. I don't know where I'm supposed to point this thing, but it's not. Maybe I'm too far away here. All right, well, we'll do this the old-fashioned way. So the article was, obviously you've got an author and an editor, but there was a panel, 12 people on the panel, scientists, entrepreneurs, technologists, historians, that weighed in on what the greatest 50 innovations have been since the wheel. Now, the list itself, while interesting, is not really what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the environment or the context in which innovation happens. Now, I don't want this to be a letdown, so we'll reveal the top 5 for you. Many of these are already really well known. So first one, obvious, the printing press, 1430. Movable type is what made this so successful. 260 impressions a minute. Knowledge began to take on a life of its own with the printing press. Electricity. Obviously, this wasn't invented. It's always existed. But somebody had to figure out how to harness it, right? How to generate it, how to create it, and how to make use of it. And interesting story about Tesla and Edison here that we'll get to in a minute. Third one, penicillin. This became the silver bullet for curing a number of previously fatal or incurable diseases. And really great story behind its creation. Semiconductor electronics. How many of you have smartphones? You have laptops, iPads, right? All of this made possible by semiconductors. And lastly, number 5 was really intriguing to me. and one that I wanted to share with all of you, optical lenses. So the technology of refracting light through glass or lenses had been known for a long time, but it hadn't been applied to humans until the 13th century. Sort of a head-scratcher, because you had people who were vulnerable to predators and enemies as a result of having bad eyesight. The author of this article talks about optical lenses leading to the single largest boost in collective human IQ in history. And it's because it brought a whole subset of the population, people like me included, I've got really bad eyesight, into the literate world, where now they could make out symbols and numbers and things. And they could learn and participate in the world. Also, optical lenses brought about things like the microscope, which taught us that there are building blocks to life, and the telescope, which showed us that the world is much greater than just what we see here. There's so much more on the outside. So the context of innovations. How do innovations happen? Where do they come from? One of the most intriguing elements is that many of these are accidental. We mentioned penicillin already. Penicillin was discovered in 1928 because a scientist came back to his petri dishes, and he noticed that in one of the petri dishes, bacteria wasn't growing, and there was a little bit of mold. And entirely by accident, he discovered the power of penicillin. I really love this story. It's not one of the top 50, but a researcher in Buffalo, New York, was creating a heart monitor, little heart monitor that could be inserted. And he picked the wrong resistor that he put into the heart rate monitor, and as soon as he turned it on, he thought, oh my gosh, I've just ruined my work. And then he observed it, and he saw that every 1 second, there was a 1.8 millisecond pulse. And this exactly mimicked the healthy human heart. And up to this point, a pacemaker was large. It was like the size of a TV, and a patient had to be connected to it externally. Now, through this accidental discovery, it could be inserted into a patient, and they could take it with them. I'd say that's pretty serendipitous. Okay, so the next one. Speaking of the accidents, also failure, right? Edison is known for his quote, "Hey, I never failed. I just learned 10,000 ways that it didn't work," right? So observing as we attempt to innovate and learning from that, you may find a happy accident. At a minimum, you'll find ways that it doesn't work, and you will refine your vision. Opposition. So another great story here, vaccines was one of the top 50. And for a long time, about 100 years after the smallpox vaccination was created, there was opposition by people, by governments. They didn't like the idea of making someone sick in order to help them not get another disease. And it wasn't until Louis Pasteur, about 100 years later, developed a rabies vaccination that governments started to come along and say, hey, maybe there's something to this vaccination idea. So sometimes there's opposition, and we have to work through it. Overlooked. This is another great story. Anyone recognize these two characters? Shout it out. Darwin and? Nope. Gregor Mendel. Yep. So Gregor Mendel is known as the father of human genetics, right? He did a bunch of studies on traits that are passed from generation to generation, and he published a paper in 1866 that to this day still stands. And it talks about recessive genes and dominant genes, things that they didn't totally comprehend how it worked, but it was truly revolutionary for the time. But it was overshadowed by this guy. So Darwin talked about evolution, and his followers, maybe they had louder voices, maybe they were a little more convincing, but it really overshadowed the work of Mendel. And as a result, this work sat in obscurity for 34 years, until 1900, when a few researchers independently discovered his work and said, oh my gosh, this is mind-blowing. This explains everything that we're seeing. And what's more, despite the opposition between these two guys and their followers, Mendel's work now explains Darwin's, right? It's only possible by understanding the way that genes are passed on and traits. Okay, they require other breakthroughs. We talked about semiconductor electronics as one of the top inventions. This is early, let's call it early internet, right? Really early internet. Networking hardware, computers, microprocessors, integrated circuits. All of that was required in order to build the internet that all of us rely on today. And finally, only possible through collaboration. So the story of these women here at the front was recently made famous by the movie Hidden Figures, all about NASA, right? Getting people to the moon. You may be surprised to learn that it took 400,000 people collaborating, working together to put a man on the moon. It's a lot of people. A lot of things had to be invented as well, things that we take advantage of today. So, for example, a CAT scan. The CAT scan machine was originally developed to look for flaws in components of the spaceships. Your ear thermometer, right? So the alternative, under the tongue or somewhere else that used to be awful, replaced by the ear thermometer, which was developed, again, by the space program to look at the birth of early stars. So really interesting stuff there. The author in this article summed it up this way, and this is the point where I'm trying to get. These are the achievements of groups of people who built on one another's efforts, sometimes over the span of many years. It's interesting, there's only one person whose name shows up in the top 50, and that's Louis Pasteur for pasteurization. Everything else that was invented, even penicillin, the guy who discovered it by accident in his lab, he didn't have the know-how to turn that into medicine. He relied on other people who knew how to produce it in mass quantities and extract it and put it into medication. And so all of these breakthroughs required the collaboration of groups of people. And sometimes, like we talked about with Tesla and Edison, regardless of which side of the argument you fall on, they were beneficial to each other. It doesn't seem like it, but they pushed each other. And the technology developed a whole lot more quickly as a result of the competition between these two men. And so as we look at ourselves, I think our goal here is to build off of each other, right? Innovation can happen, but it shouldn't happen in a silo. And that's the beauty of an event like this, is getting people together and having like-minded folks sharing ideas and collaborating. Oh, wow, that went fast. So, a couple of points here. Iteration and collaboration is the Instructure way, and I hope that you feel that from us. And if you haven't yet, please reach out to your CSM, share your ideas, share your vision, share your goals. Tell us what you are trying to accomplish so that we can help you do that. You know what, sometimes, we work really hard to get things right the first time. Sometimes we mess up. And I believe that we are willing to admit that and to adjust and change course. And that's only possible through the feedback that we get from all of you. So as we try to innovate, help steer us in the right direction. So that's how you can help us. We can help you because if we know your goals, your vision, we can talk about some of ours. Here's what's on our roadmap. This is what we're developing. This is how we're looking at these interactions. We want to share those ideas with you. And in fact, I think Matt Bingham here in just a moment is going to talk about our product validation tour process, where we get to share early ideas with you and get your feedback. So ultimately, today, tomorrow, the next day, at this conference, we want you to make connections. Get to know each other, look around the room, find people that are tackling the same problems as you are. Share your ideas, right? Share your vision. What are you doing? How are you currently teaching your employees? How are you helping develop them? Other people may have ideas that will build on what you're doing. And finally, be willing to take risks. Getting back to the Edison quote, we will learn many, many ways that it doesn't work. And that's only possible through taking risks and experimenting. And so, thank you again, all, for being here. I hope you have a wonderful time, and good luck.
All right, a lot of noise from Mitch Macfarlane, our COO, and more importantly, my boss. Nice job, Mitch. Hey, I'm Matt Bingham. I am the VP of Product for Bridge. I'm going to assume that my slides start next, or do I need to stand by? There I am. Okay, we'll start again. I'm Matt Bingham. I am the Vice President of Product for Bridge, and believe it or not, today is actually my 1-year anniversary at Instructure. I started a year ago today. Round of applause for that. Haven't gotten fired yet. I came in on a Monday. InstructureCon was actually the week before, and that was the first I realized that conference was going on the week before I started. No one ever mentioned, hey, Matt, you might want to come to this. But I'm excited to be here for my first time. Man, this is amazing turnout, right? We started this, Ike and his team, as just a little bit of an experiment to see how many people we could get here. We didn't expect a group this large. Thrilled to have you here. And I was talking to Ike before I came up, and we're actually going to set up a stretch goal for him and his CSM team. 1,000 people next year in this room. Is that right, Ike? We sign up? Anyway. All right, so I wanted to build a little bit off of what Mitch was saying and talk about our approach to innovation. You know, that was one of the big reasons that I wanted to come to Instructure and work on the Bridge product, was it was a chance. I've been in product my whole career, big companies, some small companies, but Instructure's focus on building great software and innovation was the thing that really attracted to me, to the company. In fact, as we get throughout this day, we're going to have a little more private sessions, closed sessions, and talk about some more of our upcoming roadmap items, some new solutions and products that we're really excited about coming out later in the year. But let's talk about innovation and our approach to it at Bridge. So one of the challenges that Mitch offered me when I came in was, hey, you've got this great Learn product. We want to make sure that keeps going, but we want to keep making a splash and growing in this corporate side of the market. So he challenged me and my team to start to evaluate other market opportunities, right? The way we do that in Instructure is a process called, okay, same issues. The PVT, or Product Validation Tour. I always like to make sure I spell out my initialism before we start, because if you look up PVT on Urban Dictionary, it's actually like some mafia in Uganda or something like that. So probably don't search for it. But let me tell you a little bit about our approach to building new software. And by the way, Bridge went through this as well. Or at least the way we ran it was we started off with my team, a little bit of my extended team. We had about 15 different product managers and UX designers in a room, and we started to look at what the market problems were that we wanted to solve, right? Not talking about features or products we wanted to copy, but what are the big pain points in the industry? In fact, I think I've got a picture here. Here's some of the team. We actually rented a condo in Park City for 3 days, which sounded like a boondoggle until you realized we were working 18 hours a day. There's me just 10 months ago, looking about 10 pounds lighter and 10 years younger. But that's what, high-stress jobs do to you. But here's part of the team. As we kind of went through this exercise, right, and these would look familiar to people trying to bring in new concepts like affinity diagrams and things like that. But again, you can't see what these say. But this isn't a feature exercise, right? This is a holistic look at the market. We want to build things in the Instructure way. We want to be able to come in and disrupt this. So a couple other things as you read into this photo. One, you'll notice the dressing choice of people on my team. We have two groups. We have people that wear hoodies every day, and then we have people that wear matching shirts from the J. Crew factory outlet. So let's say, if you wear a blue gingham shirt to a company meeting, you're going to have a few matchies. Here's a guy that I actually had to share a room with. When you put a bunch of people in the mountains for 3 days, even though we have access to electricity and running water and sewage, some people decide not to shower. This was my roommate. He works for me. Believe it or not, looking that rough, that's actually day one. So thanks, Blake. Today's actually his 1-year anniversary. But as we matured through this process, we started to get to high-fidelity designs of what we thought this product should be. This is my favorite part of it. Our UX team pulls together a lot of, it's Photoshop, but it looks like real product. You start to get a feel for what this product might be. Then we lay it out on the wall and tie it together to start to understand the user experience, how this product will be used. And this is such a great opportunity for me to come in and get people in the company excited about what we're working on. We did this in one of our conference rooms down on our 3rd floor. I bet I took 200 people up and down this wall talking about our vision and the product that we wanted to build. But that's just step one. The next step and the most important step is the travel step, right? So here's a map of North America, obviously. Canada, sorry we left you out there. But when we talk about the product validation tour, we literally go on the road and get in front of 30 to 50 different groups of customers testing these product ideas, right? And it's nothing's set in stone. What's that Salinger quote? Something about like kill your darlings, right? Be willing to do it. So it's like the ultimate act of humility is you put this product in front of a bunch of prospects and say, would you buy this? Like, what's wrong with it? And some meetings go great, and others, they just tear it apart. And then you get back in the car, you kind of debrief, you make changes to your designs, and then you go to the next customer. We went to Houston, Austin, San Francisco, Chicago, New York, London, man, just all over the place. It was exhausting. But what we came up with was some ideas that we got customers excited about enough that we wanted to go and start to look at other product opportunities which would allow us to take this message of learning and development and training and really start to get some traction in these types of groups. In fact, there was a couple things that we wanted to challenge. Here's from a Deloitte article that was written a couple years ago. 58% of executives believe their performance process is not an effective use of anyone's time. So we're talking about these like annual review process things, right? Where you go in and say, hey, you're my employee, and I'm going to rate the last 12 months of work you did. I can only remember the last 2 weeks. And then I'm going to provide you some feedback on your career and determine your promotion and your raise and all that. We look at things like this. And by the way, Burson also says that a company, good-sized company of 10,000 spends $35 million a year doing review processes like this. So it's incredibly expensive to the organization. When we put our training hat on and our learning and development hat, it's like, what are you talking about? Why are you waiting once a year to do this, right? And in fact, we see these other trends in the industry. Continuous check-ins, right? Starting to move to not that annual review, maybe a quarterly review, maybe even kind of checking in and documenting once a week with your manager or your mentor, not just from a product status kind of thing, but how's this helping you grow in your career and your skill set? Starting to align goals at work. Everyone, I assume, does goals in their company at some point, right? It's like trickle-down goals, right? It starts with the executive staff, and then someone at the bottom of the totem pole has to figure out how to map his work to that. There's been some changes in this industry, like OKRs, and there's been a bunch of little software startups that are all now going back and saying, hey, we tried that. We tried to change that with OKRs. Turns out people still aren't using it. So now we're going to start to have products called Goals Light and things like that. But that's the key right there. Align stuff to the real tactical work that people are doing, and all of a sudden they'll help you solve these company problems. But then also getting into this like micro-assessment, right? We do these annual reviews. You also wait till once a year to launch these 360 surveys and get feedback from your peers. Man, how much faster could you learn and develop your skills if you were getting much more frequent assessments of how you're developing? So these are some of the things that we want to start to incorporate into our approach to training. In fact, in the 1 o'clock session, we're going to have one of my good friends and a guy that I hired to come and run this team, Matt Maservi, who I have access to his Facebook, is going to come up and talk a little bit more about the product that we're working on. So we're really excited to share that announcement with you. Let's break this picture down for a little bit. Like clearly at a Walmart, is this a shirt that you brought with you, or did you find it on a rack somewhere? Yeah. And you went to the trouble to pose for the photo, but didn't notice that you were in the underwear section. So, excellent. Anyways, we're excited to talk about that and then how it's going to start to impact training, right? What's that intersection between taking some of these concepts that exist in the performance management world and starting to map them back to accomplishing our goals with training and goals with learning? In fact, I was, it's going to look like a setup, but it's actually weeks ago I was browsing Reddit and there was a thread about millennials, and someone had created this meme, and I thought it summed it up. If you don't like that we job hop, then maybe you should provide better opportunities for us to develop and grow. And that's the key, right? And I kind of don't like to get on this message about millennials in the workforce and how that's changing everything. Because the reality is a lot of our customers are run by millennials now, the teams are. But it's not that it's a new challenge, it's just a different demographic, right? Put them in with the Gen Xers and the baby boomers. And it's that you just need a different approach to handle different groups of different populations inside of your company. And I love that maybe this generation, but probably more importantly, technology is ushering in this new era of people that are looking at their jobs as opportunities to grow, right? The skill gap coming out of college, just growing by the year, right? So what can we do from the corporate learning side to help close that gap and also get people in the mindset that a job is a place where you come to grow and get ready for your next job? Maybe it's inside of that company, maybe it's outside of that company. Instructure's got a unique approach to this where, Josh will get up and does an employee onboarding, Josh, our CEO, every couple months, right? And he's like, you should be thinking about this as a 2 to 3 year job. And at the end of that, reassess. Do you still have opportunities here? Do you still have opportunities to grow? If yes, stay. If no, find your next thing, right? And it's that kind of pursuit of knowledge, and it's such a great tie-in to the Canvas side of the world where we can carry on that continued learning paradigm. And I think that as we start to adopt that, the new challenge for everyone in this room is to find solutions your employees will embrace, right? I talked about those Burson statistics about annual reviews, but the reality is there's a lot of software like this all over our industry, right? They sell on the value proposition, but then you get in there and no one uses it, right? Adoption is super low. That's one of the things we want to solve with Bridge, as represented by my bridge metaphor here, is to really get away from this mindset that we're just going to build a bunch of software to meet the needs of our buying center and realize who the customer is of our buying center, right? So we want to start to really get in the mindset of building great tools for everyone in this room and our admins, but really starting to address the needs of employees and managers inside of our organization as we try and spread that message of learning throughout it. So I want to talk a little bit about the foundational elements we think about as we're building Bridge and everything else kind of in our 5-year vision for where we want to take this product line. How we build Bridge and why you should care. And I've got 4 tenets. We're doing okay. But core competencies and skills, that's a big one of those things, right? We talk about this. It gets a lot of lip service. We like to think about it from a recruiting perspective of, hey, here's the job and here's what I need people to be good at. We want to hire a new VP of product. Matt, I need you to be good at product vision. I need you to have a good presence with executive staff. I need you to understand the business holistically. Great. You get the person in and then the conversation stops. How does that manifest through the rest of their stay at that company? And I think as we start to reevaluate, we're going to try, it worked that time. This kind of moving away from this message of what did you hire me for? What are the skills that I'm bringing? And what are the skills that I can grow at the company? Is we start to look at different mechanisms to introduce training. It's no surprise that, as a online learning or an e-learning vendor with Bridge, we've started to develop a lot of features around in-person live trainings, right? And the reality is because a blended learning solution is much more effective, right? There is this kind of hands-off training, go study this, go learn this. But then bring it into the classroom, right? Have that engagement that we know makes learning more engaging and makes people be able to retain information longer. And then also this concept of how am I progressing, right? We talk about that more frequent assessment. What if we tied in better assessment into training? Where I could take a course and then see how that's affected me as an individual. What have I gotten better at? Some of that's through quiz assessment, right? Did I master that course? Some of that's through getting information from your peers. Here's kind of an interesting concept. You might get the certificate at the end of the course, but if your perception in the workplace is that you still don't know how to do that, the certificate doesn't mean anything, right? So we want to start to, again, blend that where we can understand your perception by your peers, by your managers, maybe people that work for you, and tie that to a broader learning strategy. So core competencies and skills is going to start to really become this almost architectural element that's going to flow through all of the products in our corporate markets group. And then this other message of data everywhere. And some of these should look familiar from Bridge today. Here's some kind of prototypes that we're working on around skills and core competencies. But for me, that's the biggest thing we have to push on, right? And I was actually a little bit impressed with my team the other day. We did a product briefing with an industry analyst. At the end of it, she said, you know why I like talking to Bridge? Because you guys are the ones that get the importance of data in the organization. She's like, I feel like other people don't get that. And maybe it's because I've been harping on that for a year now, so it felt like a little bit of justification there. But the more we can provide actionable insights at your fingertips, the more you can be part of a broader learning strategy, right? If I can arm you with the data to show you where the talent pools are in your organization, where the skill gaps are, you can go to those hiring managers and say, we need to figure out a plan to up-level these people here. Or maybe you got too much talent on team and you got to figure out a plan to cross-pollinate these teams. Or maybe they're all hopeless and you need to go talk to someone in HR about a new hiring plan, right? But the more data that we can give you, I think the more strategic we'll be able to be. And as a third kind of element here, check in with your people. Right? We talked about that continuous check-ins, more one-on-ones. Like, we should apply that to training. We need to understand the pulse of an organization to know how to shape our training going forward. And we want to make tools that makes this a lot more convenient, right? Part of that's through social elements, but part of that's just through promoting the value of face-to-face engagements, right? I mean, there's a reason everyone decided to fly out here and drive 2 hours up into the mountains. There's a value in being here and talking to product people, talking to your peers face-to-face, as opposed to like an online community. Right? So let's embrace that with our products. And then the final message here is around teams, right? And this is another one of these kind of shifts in the market right now. And everyone talks about teams. In fact, we get on some of these analyst calls and they say, don't tell me about individual stuff. Talk to me. Just what are you doing for dynamic teams and all this stuff? It's like, great. How do you build a really great team? It's by understanding the strengths and the weaknesses of individuals. So again, and maybe this ties into the data message a little bit too, but the more we can give you an understanding on the skills inside of your organization, the better that we are going to be at building teams around there. So those are all the slides that I had today. But one thing I did want to say is we've got quite a few product people here. And by the way, that's my promise to you. You guys keep coming back. I'm going to start sending every person in my organization to this thing because there's just a ton of value in having face-to-face time with product people. That's one of the ways I want Bridge to be, what I want Bridge to be known for. People being able to interact with product people, having that direct line and being able to help and shape the progress of our products. And as we outlined in that PVT process, like that's entirely customer driven, right? And it sounds so obvious, but so many companies do this where they just get in this vacuum and build a product and say, hey, we got smart people here. We know the market's going to love it. We know people are going to buy it. And we're going to have these like evangelical customers for us. But the reality is great products come from frequent interaction with our customers. So we've got myself. We've got Todd, who's the director of product over Bridge. He's going to talk a little later this afternoon. Matt Maservi. We've got Gentry somewhere around here who runs the ARC product. We are going to be around all week. We'll be down in the booth. We'll be at the cocktail hour, probably just me, and the parties. But so come up, talk to us. We want to hear from you. We want to get your feedback. And again, thanks for coming. We're really looking forward to the rest of today and the rest of the week. So with that, Ike, I think we'll send people on a quick bio break and get your T-shirts. And then we'll start here at the top of the hour. Thank you.